Welcome back to the Power Maxed Mini Challenge from Brands Hatch, where it happens to be Mini Festival weekend as well. Now, one of the really popular features of that is the public grid walk, and as you can see, it's absolutely packed here this weekend, despite the weather not being particularly nice, but it's brought a lot of people out.
Yeah, it's great. It's what it's about, and it brings the public into the whole motor racing scene. Because how many kids, especially, never get a chance to even walk on the track. And you can see with Brands, there's quite a camber on this track.
Yes, there
which
is.
You don't realise. You think it's all flat, but there's a heck of a camber on this.
Yeah. It's so cool. It's awesome.
It's very fun looking at all the cars.
Got Lawrence Davies signing an autograph at the moment. Look at that. Good stuff. I don't know if you can see through the front windscreen there, but that's not Hamish Brandon in the seat. Distinctly looks like a panda bear to me. We have got over here, this is Chris Knox's car, obviously. There we go, helmet on top. Before you get in the car, I've got to ask, why did you have a bear in your seat?
Well, for a start, he's better looking than me, and he's everybody seems to want to give him a cuddle, which I'm feeling a bit left out about now, but never mind. But no, it's just all in the panda theme, so panda racing parts and accessories, and I thought, well, we'll have a bit of fun with it and hopefully put a smile on some kids' faces, so they seem to love it. Just made it a bit more appealing to have their picture taken with it and things like that, so it was just a bit of fun.
There's our lovely grid girls. Very, very popular, obviously, with the public. Lots of photographs being taken. And finally, the last car, the one with all the trophies on top, is, of course, that of Luke Caudle. Look at all that, a stash of trophies. The grid has now been cleared, which means that race 3 of the weekend can get underway. The engines are now revving. There you go, the car of Chris Knox, who of course is in pole position for this one. It is a rolling start, so without further ado, let's go racing.
The rolling start always adds an extra dimension. It's a different discipline for the drivers, gives us plenty of excitement into Paddock Hill Bend. This then is how they line up, with in pole position Chris Knox ahead of Luke Caudle, then Chris Smith and Neil Newstead, with Hamish Brandon and Lawrence Davey sharing row 3. Steve Cocker completes the top 10. Gideon Cresswell heads the Cooper class runners from Matt Hammond, and then Shane Stoney and Ricky Page, Adrian Norman well up in 5th. Cars formed up Noah's Ark style, 2 by 2, coming through clearways and onto Ram Straight, getting ready for the signal. At the top of the gantry when the red lights change, they will be going racing here at Brands Hatch the 3rd time this weekend at the Mini Festival in the Power Maxed Mini Challenge. And away we go as the pack sprint towards Paddock Hill Bend. Of course, the 2 classes, the JCW cars and the Cooper class, really 2 races in one, as the JCW cars surge through the first corner. It's Chris Knox who's got the early advantage from Chris Smith, Luke Caudle and Neil Newstead. We are in car with Lawrence Davey as he doesn't quite tap Neil Newstead, who slides sideways of his own volition as Caudle sneaks into 2nd. Lawrence Davey does much the same for 4th as the head of the pack head down out of Druids. Luke Caudle and Chris Smith continue to dispute 2nd place. Caudle's got the inside line for clearways. You suspect, therefore, he will hold on. Indeed he does. The man to watch, though, is the blue car, Lawrence Davey. It's been a brilliant first lap for Davey, as behind the Cooper class runners all jostling for position in the early stages. Into Paddock Hill Bend, meanwhile, Chris Knox leading the way from Luke Caudle, who gets onto 2 wheels through Paddock, and that's destabilised the car. He snaps across to the left and into the tyre wall, and that's a nasty incident from Luke Caudle. Barrier 1, Luke nil, unfortunately, and struggling to think of the last time we saw an error like that from Luke Caudle. Very uncharacteristic, just pushing a little bit too hard. What it means, though, is Lawrence Davey is promoted into 2nd place, with Chris Smith down to 30 attempts to squeeze through into 2nd. Lawrence Davey, robust but fair in his defence. And this is very good news for the race leader Chris Knox, because it gives him the opportunity to try and make good his escape as they sprint along the gravel straight through the completion of another lap. Chris Russell there, he is in 5th, chasing down 4th place man Neil Newstead. Meanwhile, the Cooper class looks very busy. Ricky Page it is, who is in 3rd place, because they're chasing down Gideon Cresswell and Josh Gollin. There are the pair of them. And then we've got this gap back to the squabble for 3rd. Ricky Page leading the charge of the Cooper brigade into Paddock Hill Bend. In car with Shane Stoney. He's so smooth, he makes it look so easy. Shane Stoney, and he's racing absolutely flat out, but he's very relaxed with the gear changes, very relaxed with the turns of the wheel, and that's really what you need to do to make these Cooper cars run successfully out of Graham Hill Bend. Ricky Page sprints along the Cooper straight with Shane Stoney in pursuit. Meanwhile, at the front of the pack, Chris Knox has been comprehensively caught by Lawrence Davey. Davey didn't want to do that all alone, so Chris Smith has joined him to keep him company. As now Davey looks to challenge for the lead, and he's got the inside line up the hill towards Druids. Chris Knox, though, just moves across in time. You can see just how hard Lawrence Davey, though, is trying to move to the head of the field. Pretty much throw a blanket over this leading trio as out of Graham Hill Bend, the Cooper straight on towards Surtees. They're already encountering a little bit of traffic. It's Pete Dearmont who they'll be coming up to next, and Pete moves aside. Very nice stuff, that doesn't intrude on the battle for the lead whatsoever. Chris Knox maintaining the most slender of advantages as they head along the Bramble Straight past the teams on the pit wall, all encouraging them on as Knox parks the car on the end of the road. Smart stuff that from Chris Knox. He's going to make Lawrence Davey do this the hard way and try and drive around him. About coming out of Paddock Hill Bend immediately, Knox covers the inside line. Davey looks to the outside, then moves back in behind Knox. Thus, Chris Smith can't squeeze through. As around Druids and down towards Graham Hill Bend, this leading trio. Got to be careful though, because if they pull too intently, that is going to bring Neil Newstead and Chris Russell into this scrap for the podium places. Meanwhile, Gideon Cresswell has been caught by both Ricky Page and Shane Stoney, and Cresswell goes sideways. Josh Gollin's also been overhauled, and therefore Ricky Page looks to move into the lead of the Cooper class. He does just that with assistance from Shane Stoney, who can't then go through himself because we've got recovery of a car up at Druid. So instead, the leading quartet turning through Graham Hill Bend. It gives Gideon Cresswell the opportunity to gather his thoughts and start to challenge, but he runs wide across the grass. That possibly gives a little bit of an opening for Shane Stoney to think about challenging, and he does just that into clearways, but Cresswell moving across, covering the racing line as they accelerate along and complete another lap. And this really the only moment of respite on the Brands Hatch Indy circuit, unless you're scrapping for the lead. They're almost three wide into Paddock Hill Bend. Stoney looking every which way, can't find a way through, except that Cresswell breaks a little bit too deeply. He slithers wide, and they've got the Chris Knox Lawrence Davey battle coming through as Gideon Cresswell gets tipped into a spin. Around he goes, and he will have to try and dig himself out of the gravel trap at Druids. And that was a case of trying to squeeze 6 minis into space that's really only large enough for 4 of them. Meanwhile, it's enabled Chris Knox and Lawrence Davey to clear the Cooper class lead battle. It's also enabled Shane Stoney to jump into the lead of the Cooper class, and we are getting towards the latter stages of the race. Lawrence Davey is going to win this one. He's going to have to do something fairly spectacular, and he's going to have to do it very, very soon, because accelerating along the Bramble Straight is Chris Knox. Another lap is reeled off. Davey once more looks to the high, wide, handsome line of Paddock Hill Bend. Might be all of those 3, but it's not the line that's going to give him the lead of the race. Chris Knox, nonetheless, preemptively covers the inside line into Druids. As Matt Hammond chases Adrian Norman in the Team Scale Electrics car. Ian Cresswell has recovered to be just ahead of this battle. We've also got Kevin O'Connor, who is trying to pick his way through. This is one of the JCW class cars. As Chris Knox has now, with a little bit more traffic, been able to build enough of a buffer over Lawrence Davey to allow him to enjoy this one. It's going to be victory for Chris Knox. Second place, Lawrence Davey, just ahead of Chris Smith, who has been remarkably consistent this weekend. And once more, a fine race. In the Cooper class, it is going to, most certainly going to be the win for Shane Stoney. Ricky Page, though, his ever-present shadow, but he couldn't quite do enough. So Stoney victorious, with Ricky Page in second place. Third place going the way of William Phillips. Let's have a look then at the final classification, with the win for Chris Knox ahead of Lawrence Davey, Chris Smith and Neil Newstead, with Chris Russell completing the top 5. In the Cooper class, Shane Stoney the winner from Ricky Page, William Phillips, Josh Gollin. Gideon Cresswell recovers to 5th after that huge scare he had into Druids. So another bottle of bubbly and more trophies for Shane Stoney. It has been a remarkably good first couple of rounds of the season for him thus far. Puts him to the fore of the Cooper class standings, and the same for Chris Knox. Thumbs up as he celebrates on top of the Brands Hatch rostrum, but they've still got one race to go.
Just managed to time it right to get the pair of them in Exeter paddock. So, you know, to get that, get the win after, especially after the damage we got in race 2. So, you know, really pleased. Got to say huge thank you to Coastal. You know, the car was fantastic then. You know, it doesn't look too great, but it's certainly quick, so thanks to them.
That was one of the most difficult races I've ever had. The Rivervale Leeson Mini wasn't quite as on the pace as we were in the first race, so I think Lawrence had about 0.4 of a second on me, so we got away well. He launched reeled me in really quickly. Had to defend pretty much from the get-go.
He did it, Shane Stoney back on the podium for the Cooper class, and Chris Knox notching up another win in the JCWs. It's not over yet, there's still one more race to come this weekend, so join us back at Brands Hatch after the break.